Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kire here with another Infinite Magicraid video, and in today's video, I want to talk about this mechanic that I theorized, and we got pretty close to it without an actual official announcement, but they finally are telling us more about how effect hit works. So it's even better than I thought, but this would have been very difficult to test, so I want to break this down and talk about what they actually announced and what they've said about this, because this is going to have a massive impact on progressing in this game. Because if you guys don't know, effect hit can increase the chance of a skill that inflicts a debuff. That's why Nasil's skill, Frigid Shield, has a low basic chance, but you can still see him inflicting freeze a lot on enemies in arena. So I was kind of expecting this, but it was nice, and then this is what we found. We were able to prove up to 60% chances on moves. So like, let's say you had a 60% chance to do an AoE attack down, or a 60% chance to drop defense, or maybe a 60% chance to put an HP burn, for example. And if you crank up the effect hit way higher than the effect resistance, it was guaranteed. But what I like about this is that it's finally telling us specific things that are making, like, what numbers you need to be able to make things guaranteed. Because I think the big takeaway is number 3 on this list. Because I thought it was only 60%, but you can go to 50, but just look at how much effect hit you need over the effect resistance to be able to make this possible. So for example, Nicholas's skill, Coming Surprise, has a 50% chance of inflicting freeze when he faces an enemy with 30% effect res. If Nicholas has 130% effect hit, he will freeze the enemy with a 100% chance. So on 50% moves, you need 100% more effect hit, and then he will be able to actually freeze that target or land whatever debuff. So just keep that in mind. If there's any move in the game that inflicts a debuff, you need to have 100% more effect hit than them, because it's just massively, exponential, or the diminishing returns of effect hit is so high that it falls off a cliff. Like the graph on effect hit is going to go up how much effect hit you need to be able to actually make a difference in your percentage chance on landing debuffs. So I thought it was 60 because when I was testing Ben Austin, I wasn't able to get it to 100%, but I was getting close. But it turns out I need even more effect hit than I was able to test with, maybe if I have better gear. But really what this does is, depending on the character, effect hit is just not going to have any limit to how good it is, because a lot of times you're going to need, like for example, at higher end content, the highest end, it's 100% effect resistance. So we would need 200% effect hit to be able to land things with 50% chance. That's really going to apply with bleeders, because the fact that it affects them, but it gets so exponential, it's going to be very difficult to calculate the best DPS, because we don't know the specific mechanic here, but we have to factor in so many other things, such as attack, mastery, crit rate. For example, with the new Lucia, how she can proc bleeds now, but it requires a crit. So she has a whole nother stat that other bleeders don't necessarily have to worry about if they're already procking up to 6 bleeds. So that's another thing to keep in mind when it comes to this, is that bleeders, they usually have low percentage chances, like 30%, 35%, something like that. So cranking up the effect hit does 2 things. It's going to be increasing their damage and also their chance to, I guess it's the same thing, but mainly it's about applying the bleed, but also increasing their damage, because it's going to increase the chance of applying that bleed. So it's a really impactful stat. So I think the big things to take away from this, though, are going to be effect hit is way more valuable than I think people give it credit for, and you really can't have enough of it. Like obviously there's going to be characters that could just apply debuffs. For example, if it just says without any percentage chance, and I'm glad they confirmed this, because a lot of people have this confusion, whereas at number 5, if the skill description does not contain a chance, it will inevitably inflicts the debuff to the enemy, which is very nice. If it just says applies speed down or removes the shield, you don't even have this check. It just does it. So there's going to be characters like that, but most characters have a percentage chance, and based on how, when content gets harder, their effect resistance gets higher, effect hit is always going to be more and more necessary, and it's really vindicating to know that even something with a 50% chance, if you just get enough effect hit, you can make it guaranteed. And to compare this to a game like Raid, you can never get it guaranteed. People go way out of their way to make runs happen with characters that have unresistible defense down, for example, in Raid, because it's so valuable to be able to have that consistency in a run. Because in Raid, it doesn't matter how much more accuracy you have over their resistance, there's always this random 3%er. Whereas this game doesn't have that random 3%er, which I like so much more. That random 3%er is complete garbage. It's just a trash mechanic. So they have to rely on unresistables. Whereas we don't. We just need a ton of effect hit. So let me go through a few characters here that I think, a few characters, auras, gear, dungeons, stuff like that, that are actually going to be things you should target more because of this guarantee. Okay, so the first character, for sure, let me just make sure we're on the right thing. Okay, is going to be Verdo. I think he is so much better. I actually have him build because of this. It's his passive. And you want him exclusive. Let me make sure this is, yep, it's showing. Okay, so it is 20%, just normal. And then it's still effective if he dies, and then doubles if the ally is under attack up status. So not only attack up is amazing on bleeders, affected is amazing on bleeders. Combination, imagine giving 40% effect hit to all your bleeders and giving him attack up. He's like the perfect character for this. And I think he might even be more valuable in certain situations when you really need a lot of stats than Slaville. Slaville brings a lot of damage on her own, so it kind of shores that up. But at the same time, she doesn't bring the effect hit. So instead, do you want more effect hit and more reliability, or do you want more damage from another character? Probably most likely the damage is going to be better with, having Slaville versus Verdo, but I could see in a lot of situations he's going to be just as good or maybe slightly below. And especially in situations where you need people that apply debuffs. That was a situation of just guild boss. But in other situations, for example, in dungeons or in Elemental City, stuff like that, where you really need a ton of effect hit to be able to apply debuffs, such as CCs and things like that, I can see Verdo being way better because of that extra effect hit is going to increase not only your bleeders, but also your CCers. And not saying the bleeders are the way to go when it comes to that game mode, but pretty much it is. Just because of the nature of the mechanics where they forcibly make HP burn lower, they forcibly make burn lower, unfortunately. So you kind of need bleeders in those situations or just raw damage dealers, but this is going to be a really good character. Then that leads me to my next thing is Gwyneth here. She drops effect hit gear or hit sets. And I think this is going to be someone to really prioritize when it comes to dungeons and something that I need to prioritize. So people that win Lucifer, you have like the S tier character for this. When it comes to Gwyneth, you need a person that can lower the healing. And by far, Lucifer is going to be the best at that. With the changes to Lucia here, I could see a lot of people maybe wanting to go Lucia over Lucifer. I think it's going to be very close because of just how much burst he has and then his effectiveness with severe wound here on Gwyneth. So that is something to keep in mind, that I think Gwyneth is going to be super valuable going forward because of effect hit is just that good, in my opinion. And then also you get the mastery set, which is going to be very good for all of your people that apply debuffs as a damage dealer, HP burn, bleeders, burn characters. And then the combo here, you can make them accuracy sets. So I can see a ton of people really stacking up a ton of accuracy sets relatively quickly, for a game like this, if they just focus in on Gwyneth only. And then during those triple rate up events where you can pick a specific thing, you're going to be picking effect hit, you're going to be picking mastery. And then as you're going to be in turn, those are going to be some of the best sets for your guild boss. And then in the guild boss, you're going to be getting drops of that. As you can see, I have 4 rolls there. You get a ton of it. I do these. I can 2 key this, and then I do a lot of, then I 1 key level 4, and then we finally unlock level 6 that I haven't really gotten to mess with yet. But as you can see, you get a ton of this material here in the 6-star version, or the potential of 6-star version of the copper ingots. That's why I'm able to just stack this stuff up. So if you're comboing the dungeon plus this, you're going to have a ton of accuracy set gear, and then you're going to be able to eventually, or at least relatively quickly, get rid of having just the base set gear, because these combos are so good. having mastery plus effect hit here, and you keep the full 20% effect hit. So I think that is going to be a really good way to make it to where we can start to have good gear, is you just really double down on this and shore up your bleeders, shore up your CC characters that are actually applying these debuffs and making them either have lower attack, lower speed, things of that nature. Then that leads me to what kind of auras we should be focusing on, because now that we know that affected is so good, I think really bumping up the value of these auras is going to be a big deal, because this is going to be another thing that really helps your potential consistency, damage of your bleeders, things like that. So here, let's look at the auras that I'm prioritizing. So if we go here, I think for survivability, there's definitely, this is completely different from the topic at hand, but a recovery horn aura, definitely the best. I absolutely love this one. Went all in on recovery horn aura for Catherine. This is a no-brainer in my opinion. Don't have to go as crazy as I did, but I just wanted to see what would happen. And this is what you can expect when you fully finish out a aura here, and a good one at that. It really helps you survive, because in Guild Boss, for example, yes, she's applying the shield, but the shield is ignored by the boss. The thing that matters is that she's healing with her passive, plus going twice when you have her exclusive 3. So that is 9% times 2. And then her passive here times 2. So that is why I like that a ton, and it really helps you survive in the Guild Boss. You don't even need a healer. The best healer is Catherine. So I think that's really sick. Then for the topic of this video, I want to talk about the auras that I really like. Here, let me go to Sigmund. And I went all in on this effect hit aura, but maybe this is a little too far away. So in the meantime, let me talk about, I think this one right here, this ranged hit aura is one of the best values. And as you start to really get higher up in the Faction Abyss, ranged hit aura is going to be a really nice way to be able to just get 18% effect hit really easily. So much cheaper. Just imagine this. So every one enemy target increases effect hit up to 18%. And don't think this is 18% times 5. I think it's pretty clearly worded that every one enemy target increases effect hit, comma, up to 18%. So that would mean if there's 5 enemies, 18 divided by 5, you're getting 3.6 effect hit per enemy. So on boss stages, you're only getting 3. Maybe they count the other 2 enemies that are not there as an enemy. And then they're gone, but I guess it wouldn't really matter. It's just every enemy up to 18%. We'd have to check it. It doesn't actually show in game, but I want to say on boss stages, you get 10% effect hit. Maybe 11 if they round up. But I think that is a pretty reasonable thing, because it's based on the other things. Like if this one, the epic one, is 24%, there's no way in hell they're going to give 90 over here. And then other ones too. I really like this mastery, or this is just a good bang for your buck. 24% mastery, especially on your bleeders. I put those on a ton of characters, but I think for the most people, this is going to be the way to go. And then way later down the line, you're going to want to go either. This is, I think, probably going to be one of the best for bleeders, but you can argue that the Boss Slayer aura is also going to be really good. But you got to think about this. Like, it's really frustrating hearing advice when it comes to auras, when people go like, oh, I think this is the best. For example, get a skill master aura, for example, on people, but they don't look that this is a 9. Like 9s are going to be so hard to get. Good luck getting this. This is me crushing them all, and I have 3 of them. I've gotten like 30 level 1s, maybe even 40 level 1s before I've gotten 3 of these. So it's like almost a whole nother tier to ever recommend someone to get a level 9 aura. So keep that in mind. That also applies to these ones. Yes, I just recommended Recovery Aura, but just keep in mind that level 9s take forever. Level 8s take forever. You want to focus in on something else to get first, because it's going to be a very long time until you ever get something like this. And I think people kind of forget about that, or if they're wailing out, they're just skipping it and they don't know what it's like to actually grind for these things. It took me about the same amount of time as a mythic to get my first one of these. And this is like a bad version of these. So, like one of the lower ones. where is it? This one right here. This took like just as long as a mythic, from the start of playing the game, as you're kind of building up a mythic, like to give you an idea. And this is the 1, 2, 3. So when people recommend this, it's like, okay, like you're not realizing just how long this is going to take. And then and this one, 10's even harder. And you can see what I mean by how hard it is. Yeah, let me see if they break it down in game. Yeah, they break it down all right here. So you can see the percentage chances. But just for the purpose of this video, I just want to talk about the effect hit ones. And I think for the most part, in my opinion, when it comes to just value, I think you get so much value out of this one for the most part that you could sit on it a long time, and then you start throwing it on a lot of characters. Like for example, I'm going to throw it on Visley here. I can just completely max it out on her. Boom, she gets 18%. Characters that anything that applies a debuff, you can just throw that on there and have, a lot of success with it. You could even throw it on people like, Bari, for example, or people that just have AoE, debuffs like Nicholas, but there's probably going to be better ones out there for them. Like I put deep damage on him because he's going to be attacking the boss a ton. And then I really like this one too in Mastery Search, especially on a character like this because you need a skill. So on allies, increasing their mastery by 10% after casting an active skill. So when he's exclusive 3, he's always applying an active skill. And I'll definitely do a video breaking all this down in way more detail. But the point of this is that effect hit is just so much more valuable now knowing this than before. And if you want to have a lot more success in pushing through, understanding this concept is going to make everything better. It's going to make it significantly more attainable to get better scores in Guild Boss, significantly more attainable to be able to push through this and be able to land CC consistently. It's like such a big deal to be able to know how this concept works. And so I think that's pretty much it when it comes to this topic. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything else you want me to discuss when it comes to this specific topic. And with that, guys, I am out of here. Peace.